Welcome to Direct, which is the Hebrew word for way, and this is our weekly psalmcast meditating on the way. And today, our psalm is Psalm 129, and my name is John Mark Hicks.
And my name is Bobby Valentine. Do you want to welcome you to Derek, our Psalmcast on walking with the Lord on the way before Him in this world? Today we are going to be looking at Psalm 129, which is number 10 in a series that are called the Songs of Ascents. And it's a thankful song. It looks back a retrospect at some of the history of Israel, but thanksgiving that Yahweh has never given them up and He's on their side. So, welcome. Glad you're here.
Well, remind us, Bobby, what the songs of ascents are, just in case somebody's just kind of dropping in on Psalm 129. What are the songs of ascents?
Yeah, the Songs of Ascent are a collection in Book 5 of the Psalter. The Book of Psalms is divided into five smaller books on the analogy of the Torah. And the Songs of Ascents, that goes from Psalm 120 through 134, tell the story, or they're used in pilgrimages. They're sometimes called a pilgrim song or the songs of ascent. They take the children of Israel on a pilgrimage from far away from Zion and into the courts of the temple itself, standing before the Holy of Holies. You start, and that's a literary thing that they do in the Book of Psalms, but historically, it could have been used as well by pilgrims literally walking towards Jerusalem, ascending the hills towards the city, entering into the city, and then in Jesus's day there would be a series of 15 steps in the court of women where they would sing these songs, each one on a particular step. And it does, it takes you on a journey as a group. An individual finds themselves in the group and they come before the Lord and they express gratitude that He has been with them all along, has taken care of them. And that's true in our text today, where the Lord has blessed them and not given up, even though the psalm recognizes that uh, we have been through some trials and tribulations as the people of God. So that's how it.
Yeah, Psalm 129 recognizes this is the story of Israel is a hard story. It's a story
Yes,
with enemies, with struggles, with trials, and yet at the same time, it's a story that um, we know the Lord is righteous, and we
the
know the
Lord is
Lord is with
righteous.
us, and the enemies have not prevailed. So it's kind of like
Exactly.
you're on your way. Maybe you're entered the city already. You're coming up to the temple, and you say, "Okay, people have opposed us all along, both in our history, maybe even in our pilgrimage. We're still living in a hostile context, or maybe an oppressive context, whatever that is." People have sought to undermine us, and yet the Lord has prevailed, and here we are. We have arrived
That's
right
right.
where God has called us to be. And so the Lord is good, or the Lord is righteous here in this
Yeah.
psalm. Yeah.
Yeah. Psalm 120, um, yeah, 129 uh, reinforces several of the other texts in the Pilgrim's Psalter. So it recalls the opening in Psalm 120 where there is no shalom. The people don't like shalom. They don't like peace, and I'm for peace. They're all for war. And it recalls again in Psalm 121 that it is Yahweh who is the keeper of Israel. He's the one who watches over us. And
Yeah.
and it recalls 124, let Israel say, had it not been the Lord who was on our side, we surely would have been swallowed alive. And they recognize that in this particular psalm. So you get this story again, these songs all function together in this narrative of bringing us from a place of chaos and war and absence of shalom to a place where we're going that is blessed, full of God's righteousness, full of God's hesed and His blessing upon us. And we are here. The
Yeah.
very
As
fact that we are here shows that God has never given us up. And that's a powerful statement for Israel to say and the people of God to even today.
Yeah. So it's
So,
like for Israel, the journey, the wilderness, the struggle. But when they come to the temple, when they come into the presence of God, there's a peace and there's a righteousness and there's a joy being in the
that's right.
presence of God. And I think that's true for us as well. We can find that peace in a lot of different spaces. You know, you can
Yeah,
find it on the bank of a river, but ultimately we find it in God's presence among God's assembled people. And
exactly.
so I think we can see the Psalms as something Israel sings and the church sings, because when the church is gathered, they have come to a space that where God is present, and we've come to a space where we can enjoy this communion, be reminded of who God is, be reminded of God's faithfulness, be reminded of
Yeah,
God's care for us and commitment to us. And we can celebrate that peace, even though we're surrounded on the outside by a hostile world. When we
yeah.
come into the assembly, there's where we can bless the name of the Lord, and the
Exactly,
Lord will
exactly.
bless us as well. So we enter into that kind of communal, relational moment when we assemble together.
Yeah. The Hebrew Sermonator has a vision kind of like the songs of ascents as well. You come to Hebrews chapter 12, and he says,
Yeah,
we have come to Mount Zion. We and this group of people, they have come there as well. We've come
right.
to
Mount
God. And
verse
even though we're
22. Yeah,
surrounded by angels and the spirits of those made perfect, and the blood of the Lamb of Jesus that is there, we have come to a place that
to
also
Zion. Right, Mount
to
Zion.
Zion. And
Yeah,
we've come there,
exactly.
and here it's almost as if time stands still, or chaos is banished from this place. It's kind of like a Garden of Eden all over again, and that's
Yeah, and we
um
get to see the future in that moment. We get to
exactly, we see the
experience
future.
the
And
hope of the people of God.
exactly.
So let's
And
go ahead and read the psalm, Bobby, and
sounds
then
good.
we can talk about it in more detail. But we've given kind of a preview here. So Psalm 129.
Yeah. Psalm 129, a song of ascents. Often they have attacked me from my youth. Let Israel now say, often they have attacked me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. The plowers plowed on my back. They made their furrows long. The Lord is righteous. He has cut the cords of the wicked. May all who hate Zion be put to shame and turned backward. Let them be like the grass on the housetops that withers before it grows up, with which reapers do not fill their hands, or binders of sheaves their arms, while those who pass by do not say, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. So that ending is kind of ultimately where we're going to get, right? We're going to in Psalm
Exactly.
134, blessed be the name of the Lord, and the Lord bless
Exactly.
us. So, but we're here, we're still on the path, we're still on the journey, and we're remembering our story.
We are.
Let Israel say, let Israel now say, let Israel kind of always remember that it has enemies and that there are
Exactly.
people who have attacked us, often have
They have.
attacked us. So
Yeah.
we have always lived kind of in a hostile context, where rarely have we had peace among the nations, maybe for a period of time with Solomon, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Israel's story, Israel's history has been one of oppressive empires and intramural struggles among the regional nations. And so, this sense of we have always been an attacked people. We've always had people who have hated us, who have hated Zion.
All right.
And yet, here we are. We're on this journey.
Yeah. Yeah, we're the oppressed minority, so to speak. Our history is that of the refugee. My father was a wandering Aramean. Some translations say I like my father was a wandering refugee. That's I think how you translate that. But here it says from my youth. Of course, Israel is being personified here, and all Israel is coming together. You got a good, I think, doctrine of church here. We're all coming together, and it's like from our youth we have had this uh, conflict that has animosity that has been directed towards us. And we identify with that. We remember that long history as there's one scholar who calls it is simply one long history of a passion narrative.
Mm,
And I think that's really a good way to look at this. We have suffered at the hands of the Egyptians. We come right out in Exodus chapter 17. As I recall, it's the Amalekites suddenly attack Israel there in the wilderness. And then just seems like one thing after another. You get to the book of Judges and on and on and on. Israel's constantly being attacked, constantly, sometimes even among themselves. You
yeah.
got the huge empires of Egypt and then Assyria and then the Babylonians and the Persians and on and on and on. So all of a sudden,
The
we
Greeks and
remember
Romans.
the
Yeah.
yeah we remember the origin story, but it becomes our story too. Through this liturgy, we suddenly are placed within that narrative that includes us, and the enemies are not actually named, so they could be a lot of different things, even down
Hmm.
to our own day. As we well throughout the pilgrim songs themselves, we look up, and where does our help come from? We're worried about all the just coming towards Zion itself. There are going to be those principalities and powers that
Yeah.
may make war on God's people and attack us in a vicious way.
Yeah. And that they have not prevailed. I mean, that's
They
kind of
have
the
not
bottom line there in verse
prevailed.
2. They have not prevailed. You get the repetition of the lines, but then the second lines of each stanza or strophe are different. That is, they have not prevailed. I think of like Malachi chapter 1 when Malachi says to Judah, the Lord loves you, and their
And they say,
response is,
how?
how has he loved us? I mean, look at us. Look at what I mean. We're just a little Persian province,
Yeah,
What?
yeah,
How has he loved us? And he says, well, look at Edom. It's no
that's,
more.
that's right.
You are still here,
That's
right?
right.
Even though you have been attacked, even though you're oppressed, even though you are, or just a minor province, you are still here. So in that sense, they have not prevailed. God is still faithful and God's people still exist. And
Exactly.
they still can be on pilgrimage, right?
That's
They
right.
can still be
That's
singing
right.
this song headed to the temple or
Yeah.
headed to the space where God is present.
No, that's exactly right. And again, there you're all because you in the Pilgrim Festival, you're singing all these songs together. We're spreading these things out, but they're doing this all at the same time. So we remember just a couple of songs ago, especially if we're in the temple with Jesus, going up those steps. It's like we just sang, had it not been for the Lord, let Israel say,
Right.
which is repeated here. And we have just saying that the Lord is the keeper of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that holds us, and he's the one that protects us. Israel, he says in 121, the Lord is your keeper, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. He will keep you from all evil. He will do all, he's the one that preserves Israel. And now, in spite of that long history of attacks against Israel, even getting down to the point where there are just a few thousand of them going off into captivity, they still the enemy has not prevailed.
Right.
We are here, and
Right.
those are the kind of things that evoke that pull this psalm out. This is not lament so much. This is praise.
Right.
We are here. We
Right.
are here.
Recognizing
We're
the lament in the past, but in the present, we're here. Right. The
That's right.
Lord has prevailed. The Lord is righteous. Right. And that's kind of what the ground of it
Exactly.
becomes.
Exactly. And there in verse 3,
Yeah, it's a
it
pretty good
lets
image,
us
isn't it, about what how the
like,
oppressors approach them. What
yeah,
is Israel? Israel's kind of like a like a field that they're plowing. Yeah.
Yeah, the metaphors there in verse 3 is just profound and graphic. And
Hmm.
it talks about a metaphor of injury and suffering and
Yeah, we're getting churned up
exploitation.
like ground being furrowed,
Exactly.
right?
It's like,
Yeah.
our Israel is like the land, and they came and they used to plow. Now, we just need to remember that a plow rips the soil up, and that's what it does. It rips the soil up. And to say, okay, they've done that on our backs. And I think of like slavery context in the United States. You see those pictures of slaves that have been tormented by the so-called masters, and you just see these things, and it's like that's what was going on with us. This has been a hard road for us. They did this. They made their furrows long. And so here you have the acknowledgement, I think, of this passion story of these war crimes against the people of God, but um,
Yeah.
we didn't disappear.
Yeah. The response to that is the Lord is righteous. The Lord's
The
going to be
Lord,
faithful to his promise. And so the Lord is righteous. So he has cut the cords of the wicked. Now, that word cords, it's like rope. It could even be used for harness.
yeah,
You know,
for
some
an animal. Yeah,
translations think of it as a yoke on the
that's right,
animals.
right.
So it might be whatever animal they're using to furrow the line there. That
Mm,
animal has yokes on it, and now God is going to cut the yokes off. He's going to release Israel from that oppression, whatever that oppression is. Or if we
exactly,
go back to the Exodus, release them from Egyptian enslavement. So he cuts. He's righteous, so he acts for the sake of his people. He cuts the yoke off, so they
exactly.
can no longer plow the
Yeah,
backs of Israel.
and that's right. If and again, if that is an oxen and the yoke is on the oxen and the oxen is used to pull the plow with the enemy behind there, holding it into the ground, and all of a sudden someone comes along and severs that cord, that all of a sudden there's no mechanism for oppression anymore. It
Hmm.
is gone.
Yeah.
Instead, you have a release. I like that. It's a releasing. It's a setting free. It sets the animal for, if there's a metaphor there for the animal, it sets the animal free,
Yeah.
but it also the people who are the victim, they are
Right.
the ones, and they're in that.
It takes the power away from
It,
the one who's doing the plowing.
that's
Has no more
exactly right.
power to plow. You can't plow anymore,
They
right?
don't have the machinery of terrorism anymore.
Yeah,
That's
there you
what they
go.
don't.
Yeah.
They don't have that. It's gone.
Yeah.
And we see this in other places in the Hebrew Bible where routinely, when we have these messianic images of the kingdom of God, the things that are going to be destroyed over and over and over are the weapons of war, the things of impression, the swords and the spears, and even the
Mhm.
shields. Will be tossed into the fire, and the hooks will be turned into plowshares themselves rather than implements of oppression. But
Yeah.
there in that verse 4, it's almost Yahweh is the very first word in that sentence. It just, it's almost like it explodes onto the scene.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
we
And
have no
anticipates verse
Yahweh
8.
up till
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
point, and all of a
Mm.
sudden, Yahweh, there's no but in there. There's no, it just,
Yeah.
they've
You're
set
right.
it down in here as like Yahweh is righteous. Yahweh is faithful. And it's like you got this declaration there. Yahweh suddenly appears and everything is okay. He's the one.
Yep.
He saw the suffering. He heard the cry. And again, I think those are kind of in this whole thing. Exodus echoes of the story. You
Mm.
get the children of
But
Israel in Exodus 1 and 2, and they're killing
we're always
the
getting
baby
those
boys,
kind
and
of
it's like
echoes.
cry out, yeah.
Yeah.
And he
Because
shows up.
the Psalms arise out of the story of Israel. So, so
Absolutely,
the echoes are
absolutely.
always kind of bouncing back and forth in that way. And so we hear, those who hate Zion. We could think about the hardness of Pharaoh in that context as well. and the hard-heartedness of the nations as they look at Israel and they hate Zion. They want to destroy Zion, or they want to control Zion. You know,
Yeah.
the big empires want to control the way to the sea or the way by the sea there, the trade routes and that sort of thing. But this, what we get a sense of the origin of this hostility to Israel. They hate Zion. What do you hear in that language? What's going on? This identification of the enemies of Israel.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The way I sort of hear this is that Zion represents Yahweh himself. This is his
The place where Yahweh
throne.
dwells.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where his name dwells. And so you have this, like, again, like Pharaoh, who's Yahweh that I should listen to him? You know, I
right.
mean, you got
Hmm.
this
The nations
mockingness. That's right.
mocking. You know, the nations
Exactly.
are crying
Um,
against God, and God is kind of sitting
yeah.
on his throne laughing. You
That's right.
know,
That's
Psalm
right.
two.
Who
Yeah,
yeah, they're the derision against the people of God and his anointed one, and yet he is in the one in heaven. And that's, I think, what's going on here, that Yahweh has chosen this pathetic little hill, and it is a pathetic little hill
yeah.
to
Sits in a
to
bowl.
make to give and empower a people to have the audacity to claim that this is the center of the world, the navel of the world, that this is the place where of all the places in the world that this is holy and that's not. And uh the
Yeah,
air it's now the Egyptians are going to hear this as arrogance, the Babylonians are going to hear it as arrogance, and they detest this. And you got these little pathetic people. It's like the Rabshakeh coming along and crying out to the people and saying, and they say, "Don't talk to us in Aramaic. We talk to us in, I mean, don't talk to us in Hebrew. Talk to us in Aramaic because we understand that. Because you're taking the life out of the people." And they're saying, "Well, you know, our God. There's nobody that can stand in our God." And I think
mm,
that's here. What Zion symbolizes is what they hate. And hating Zion in turn means, as you go through the whole Songs of Ascents, they hate peace. Peace, shalom, that's the blessing of God's presence. That's the blessing that flows from Mount Zion precisely because Yahweh is there. They hate God's rule.
yeah,
That is not any God, but they detest Yahweh's rule. Which, where does it come from? Mount Zion. It emanates from Zion. That's
yeah.
blessing from Zion, you know. And so they have their own agenda, and the
Yeah, I
people
think
of
it's
God come along for a ride.
yeah,
So
that's really important to stress that they hate Zion.
they hate
They hate
Zion.
Yahweh. They hate the presence of God. They hate the fact that God's present in the land and that sort of thing. Because what we get next is just a series of imprecations, right?
Absolutely.
Like, okay, those who hate Zion, be done with them. You know,
That's right.
get rid of them.
Yeah.
Let them pass. You know, let them be ashamed. Let them go away. You know, we don't want to deal with them anymore. Let them be like a grass on a housetop that doesn't have enough soil to
Right.
grow
Yeah.
to mean anything, right? The sun's going to burn it up because it doesn't have any
Yeah.
roots, or
Yeah.
the reapers they don't have enough to get food from. They can't
Exactly.
reap it.
There's no harvest. Everything
Yeah, there's no
dies before the
harvest.
harvest actually comes around.
Right,
And you can't grow food on top of your house. I mean, the roofs are made out of dirt in ancient Israel, and it's kind of like gutters on our houses out here in California. You might see somebody's grass coming out of the gutter, and it's like, okay, but as soon as a couple of days no rain, that grass just dies.
right.
There's no
Yeah.
hope of sustenance from that. You're here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing, and there's nothing there. This is the kind of stuff where the people who go out for the harvest simply ignore,
Mm.
because you're never going to get, it's never going to grow enough to to bear fruit, so to speak.
So in
And it's
essence,
like,
what they wanted to do to Israel, attacking Israel, prevailing over
exactly.
Israel, what they wanted to do to Israel, Israel is saying, now God, let it happen to them. You
That's
know,
right.
they attacked us. Now you return them. let them return to the kind of oppression and hurt and loss that they wanted to impose on us.
it,
So,
yeah,
and
and it's
that's God's
important.
faithfulness. God chooses his people, right? God is
Exactly.
faithful to his people. And those who would hate Zion, who hate Yahweh, this is their end result.
It's right. It's like a self-fulfilling imprecation here. You hate the source of the blessing, so the blessing is not going to come to you. So you
Yeah.
got a great, I mean, a stark contrast between Psalm 128, where you got all that blessing, and 128 ends literally by saying, "May the peace be upon
Peace
Israel,
be upon
shalom
Israel.
upon
Yep.
Israel."
Hmm.
And now you turn around, and those very blessings that are coming to those, we spent 3 weeks on those 126, 27, 128, and it's like, okay, all that blessing that's coming upon the average, ordinary Israelite family and the people of God heading towards Jerusalem, heading towards Zion, into the presence of where God is in the Holy of Holies. And we're just questing for and hungering and thirsting for that blessing from the Lord. But here you got these people who have the opposite of that. They hate shalom. That's 120. They're the enemies. They are the ones who are attacking us all along. They
Yeah.
are trying to get rid of us because they hate peace.
Yeah,
They hate,
that's an important point that when we're talking about these sort of enemies, these people who are attacking Israel, who don't want peace but they want war, we're talking about something radical here. We're not talking about something like, oh, I got insulted by someone,
oh,
or
absolutely.
this is more radical in terms of I want to eliminate you. I want to oppress you. I want to overcome you. I want to destroy you.
Well, we see
And
that in
that's who
verse
we're
3.
talking about here.
Remember verse
Yeah.
3, it's
Yeah.
like those furrows, man. Look at what they've done to us. Look at
Yeah.
what they've done to
Hmm.
us. And this is no minor insult, as you say. These people have tried to wipe us out.
Yeah, exactly.
We may want to think of Haman,
Yeah.
one
Good
grand
example.
glorious day we're going to eliminate the Jews. We may want to think of the Holocaust with Adolf Hitler. We may want to think of all kinds of scenarios like that. But yeah, this is not just somebody walking down the street and calling you a name.
Right.
This is these are people whose apparently their purpose in life
Mm.
is is destruction.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and it just says, it's there's debates on how to translate this, but it says, let them be like the grass,
Yeah.
just let them go do they're gonna have let them have shame and wither.
Let them
And those two
self-destruct,
words,
right?
they
Yeah.
those play on each other. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, just they're going to let them run their course, and they're not going to experience the profound blessing. They're not going to
Hmm.
be around long enough to have somebody say, the blessing of the Lord be upon you.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
verse 8, I
Yep.
think is this is the climax here in verse 8,
Yep.
right? What Israel is seeking by going to the temple, what Israel is seeking in terms of the pilgrimage, a blessing from the Lord and the community that will bless each other in the name of the Lord. They're not going to have that.
That's right.
There's no blessing on the attackers of Israel. There's no
Yeah.
they're going to experience decline. They're going to destroy themselves. They're going to self-destruct. But Israel, as it continues the pilgrimage, will hear this blessing. Will hear the priest speak these blessings
Absolutely.
in the temple. The priest will name them and bless them. So this goes back to kind of Numbers chapter 6 again,
It
the
is.
Aaronic
Absolutely.
blessings here.
Yep. So, yeah, that's may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you.
Be gracious
I
unto
mean,
you.
there
Yeah.
may be
Hmm.
gracious and lift his countenance upon you, and may he give shalom.
Right.
May
Peace.
he give
Hmm.
may this, may this place of well-being where life can thrive. And this, again, I think that this is because of their animosity towards Zion, they are cutting themselves off from the blessing. But this is
Hmm.
not, you know, it's not inevitable. These people could come get on the direct. They can come get on the way. They can join the Pilgrim
Right.
Festival
Yeah.
and
Just
and come to Zion. And when they
the
do, they can receive the blessing as well.
yeah, the nations can come
Um,
to Zion.
they
In
they
fact, they're
do. They
invited to
can,
Zion,
and
right?
they
Yeah.
can be they can acknowledge the Lord. They can join the family. They can because this is ironically what's going on here. I think is that the blessing for God's people, um, what they intended to put this in, what you intended for evil,
Mm.
God has turned it into a blessing.
Yeah.
It looked like bad things were going to happen, but God's people truly are blessed here. And it's coming from Zion. It's coming from the presence of the Lord. That just wonderful winds
Yeah.
of of
So if you hate Zion, don't expect the blessing. Right?
exactly.
I mean, that's kind of if you're going to oppose the presence of God, oppose Zion, then do not expect people to come alongside you and ask the Lord to bless you.
Yeah,
That's what we're on this pilgrimage for. We're going to the temple to be blessed, and we're going to
that's
bless
right.
each other and bless Yahweh
And
in
it
the temple.
yeah, and it's not just my blessing.
Right.
We are going to
Yeah, it's a
Zion.
corporate. It's a
That's
corporate
right.
event, right?
All of us, the whole family of God, those who at different points in history have been sort of dispersed. This is, after all, the place where the tribes of Israel are going to go up, as the songs say. We're going to come together, and we have differences and different way of looking at the world and reality, and sometimes even God Himself. But we come together, and we're on this pilgrimage going towards that place, and we become through the travel, through the narrative, through the story, God makes us into a family,
Yeah.
and it is our Father, as Jesus is going to say, not my Father. So I think that's what's going on here. It's just this is not an individualistic thing. This is the people of God. The people
Right.
of God receive this amazing, gracious blessing that flows from His presence.
Yeah. We're on the march to Zion, right? We're
We're on the march to
marching, we're
Zion,
marching to
exactly.
Zion.
That's right. I hadn't
That's
sung that
what
in a
the
while,
ascent
but
said. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a good song where
it
we
is.
sing
It
holy,
is
holy, holy in the
exactly.
presence of
It's
God. We enter that temple that Isaiah 6 talks about.
yeah,
Where holy, holy, holy,
yeah.
surrounded by the angels, as you mentioned in Hebrews chapter 12. So that's a
It's
great place for us to stop there and
yeah,
give us a
yeah,
sense of movement through the pilgrimage and anticipation of the arrival.
yeah.
So may the Lord bless us. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all.
Amen.
Amen.